Welcome! Adega Outlaw! Light the fire for Stone Cold Loki! Welcome to 7 Kinds of Mischief! One night, I'm going to be like, I'll be over.
Just hear you squeak at one end, and we hear the vocal cord hitting your microphone. Boom! Oh, that's it.
Hear my chair squeak and fall over. And that's gonna be it. Oh, talk about getting the blood pressure up. Holy shit. So, yeah, they've got me on like blood pressure meds because my blood pressure medicine or my blood pressure, when they checked it, it was like 160 over 100. And so they got me on. Oh, I know, right? I know. I'm usually like 120 and no, you should be lower. I'm like, I'm always at 120 over 80 something. Well, they put me on. Let's see what we got here. Losartan, 50 milligram tablets.
Yeah, it just makes you pee.
Oh, really? I haven't been doing a lot of that lately. So, we'll see. Holy shit. But yeah, I just got some of that.
Not a fan of it. We'll talk later.
Okay. Good. But I shouldn't be yelling and doing all that.
Sure you should.
God.
Oh, please. So. It's a good thing that, well, actually, it's kind of appropriate while you bring that up when I get to my stuff. But anyway, how you doing?
I'm doing, man. I was working. You know this. I'll show this off really quick.
This is so cool.
I sent this to Adega. So this is what I was working on today. I actually had some free time today. So I've been pretty busy lately. Okay. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is just the soundtrack collection. That is not rock. That is not anything else. Those are movie, TV, and video game soundtracks.
And you notice there he has tabs for alphabetizing everything. I just throw them in a box. I make sure they're not damaged and they're all standing upright, but you got them all neat and orderly. I'm impressed.
So I had fun. Doing that. I've got more of those boxes for the other stuff. I just ran out of room. So if anybody remembers the old setup I had, there is a big cabinet like behind my computer that I've got stuff on, but there were cubicles and I had all my vinyls set up in those cubicles. Well, it got to the point that I every cubicle was full. And I don't mean like, oh, well, you got some space here and there. I mean, I can't get records in and out anymore. And it was weird because as I'm pulling stuff out and going through it, I'm like, I didn't even know I had that. Oh, look, there's Boston. Holy shit. Oh, I got a Journey vinyl. I didn't even know I had Journey. A couple of soundtracks I didn't even know I had. I was like, holy shit, I didn't even know I had that. And I guess I bought it and I just put it up there and I forgot that I had it. So
Okay, question for you. On the far right box, towards the back, there is a thick black box. What is that?
Okay. So there's a couple of those in there. All
Because I
right.
noticed on the
And
far left in the very back is one that has a ribbon on it, but there's the one on the right I'm
okay,
curious about.
so there's a couple in there. So on the left, there's a big black section. That's the Cobra Kai set. That
Yes.
big that's in the middle. Then in the very back, that white one is from Fallout.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's the Fallout like super set. That's got a bunch of stuff from Fallout 4 and Fallout 5. The one in the middle, the white one in the middle, is the Ultimate Mass Effect
Yeah, you showed
vinyl.
me that one once upon a time.
Okay, the big black one on the right. So if anybody remembers, we did Mary's Game Room charity event. We did the charity event for Mary's Game Room, and we matched her up to $2,500. So she was able to get 2,500. We threw in 2,500. Mary and Mark sent me that. That is the entire John Williams score from Star Wars
Nice.
on vinyl. So there's
Very nice.
three vinyls, and there's a book that's got a book. It's got a big Star Wars book with some really cool stuff in there. Those were limited to I think 1,000. They only made 1,000 of those. So the fact that I got one,
It's awesome.
epic. So thank you again. Thank you again, Mark and Mary, for sending that. That was an
Good
absolute
people.
treat. But yeah, there's a couple of those in there, and I got a couple like that are ultimate collections in my other vinyls, which I'm going to be working on throughout the probably Sunday. I might do it Sunday. I know tomorrow I'm super busy, and Saturday I'm busy, so I might do the other records on Sunday. So, but I got a couple like that too. I've got a Nirvana set and some Guns N' Roses stuff.
Gotcha.
So.
Now you're talking about Mark and Mary and them. Some of you may remember we had Chris Fisk on here one night, who does the comic book stuff, but he was also making a game. Well, the game is not a D&D type, technically, but it is a dice card board excursion with a dungeon master type thing with it. He's almost got it developed, and I am going to talk because he needs some test players, and I'm going to talk with Mark and Marion and say, hey, you know what? When he's ready, you guys want to test this out? And I'm sure he could not find better people who know how to play games than them to try it out. It's looking really good.
8mm film collection.
Wow. How do you even store that stuff? That stuff is fragile.
Oh shit. So
Adega and aliens. I'm not doing aliens this time. I'm doing actually something that's kind of related to health, which Loki brought up for his health. And there are a lot of reasons, and we're not going to get into them too much, but there are a lot of reasons over the years, even when I started as a young kid, that made me very distrustful of medical association. And those of you who are older will recall possibly growing up with or seeing older children who were deformed. Maybe they were missing limbs. They called them flipper children. Dave Bob's in the audience. I know he will know exactly who I'm talking about. Well, in the 50s, the medical profession, some of the pharmaceuticals came up with the bright idea, oh yeah, we can actually cure morning sickness. We got this nice new drug. Exactly, Ronnie. They gave this drug to these women to say, hey, this will cure your morning sickness. It did okay with that, but it did some very, very sad things to the children. So some of you probably seen them. Most of them have left the world. It shortened their life, made things very, very difficult for a lot of people. It was quite sad. But those type of things They're still using thalidomide today, but not for that. They give it another name and shelling it out for other creative uses, we should say, because they have a formula and they're still trying to sell it. But it's I can get on to all kinds of things. Like, you think polio's gone, but have you ever heard of demyelinating spinal? I know you know spinal meningitis. You hear about it all the time.
Oh,
Guess what that is? Guess what that is?
Polio.
Polio. Yep. And people are led to believe that polio has been eliminated. I'm sorry to tell you the truth. Anyway, this is on something else. And I was very, very curious about this because you guys know that I have a fascination with all things weird, bizarre, ancient, and all that other stuff. And they were showing these super babies on this one video reel I was watching. And these kids, when they're just born, were holding their heads up and cooing, but they're all mouth breathers and they had black eyes. And some of the videos that I noticed, they were trying to say that these were super children. This is the next generation of evolution for humans. So I did some more investigation. A lot of these are coming out of all kinds of places. And there is a common thread behind them, all of them. We won't talk about the disinformation just yet, but there was a common thread behind them. They weren't necessarily super babies at all. When you see an infant mouth breathing, it means that there's some kind of trouble going on. And for them to hold their heads up, oftentimes you see, they're proud parents. Look how quickly they walk. Look how quickly they stand. They can do this, that, and they can hold their heads up. Well, in normal development for the human species, and it wouldn't matter even if evolution was a thing that was visible in humans, it wouldn't matter because the development still has to be the same. When you are from conception up until about a year old, a little less than that, your spine has one curve. It's like a C, a nice arc. And it is very, very, for those of you who are going to be parents, it's very, very important for the babies to crawl for as long as possible, up at least until 9 months, preferably 12 months. You got to keep them on the ground, even though they want to get up and move around. Most of the time they got to be on the ground. There's little tricks you can do it. Reason being is because that C curve needs to change into an S curve. You need to have that low back sway. You have to have that neck sway. And that shortens the distance between the brain and the bottom of the spinal cord and allows a cushioning. Sorry, I'm getting technical with you. It allows a cushioning and a place to expand and contract for the spinal cord, so it's not in constant stress. Anything before that leads to serious neurological issues in the long run, whether it be weaknesses, heart conditions, all kinds of different things. And they're sitting there saying that these babies that are holding their heads up this soon are super babies. And in fact, they're developing what's called a ramrod neck. Very, very bad. So I started doing some more investigation to try and figure out what the heck was going on. Saw a lot of things out of Brazil. But when you are actually looking for these things, say you go to Bing or Google or what have you, they've been scrubbed, most of it. It's very, very difficult to find. And what they're scrubbing is these black-eyed children. Because there is and from what I can see so far, it's a near 100% correlation with the mothers being subjected to a type of poke that we didn't have previous to 2020. And it was the mothers transmitting it to children who now have developmental issues. Some of them, I have even seen cyclopean babies. You'll be able to find those where they have just one eye and no nose. Some of them look like old people already with wide noses and almost like wrinkled eyes and faces. But if you start hearing these things about the next evolution and these super babies, Uh, think of Brazil. If you want to do some investigation, Psychodorf, look specifically for Brazil, but you can find them everywhere. You can find them up in North America. You can find them in Europe. You just really have to search because there is big money doing the best they can to scrub this. Now think of thalidomide, where they had something they thought was promising, and it damaged and severely hurt a lot of people. And it's starting to show in other places now with new stuff. Let's not get so specific, Chris. I'm trying to keep it aloof. But I want to tell you something about, because he brings it up, and you're going to hear all kinds of theories and reasons and stuff about this. RNA and DNA, they're closely related. DNA is what you guys all know. It's what makes up the body. It's this genetic code that when an RNA strand comes up to it, it can replicate it and make new cells, make specific proteins, amino acids, do all kinds of different things. The mitochondria works with the cell nucleus to get all these things done. I'm being very, very, very simplistic. It's much more complicated than that, but just to give you an idea. The idea with the RNA is to actually change things so that it will produce stuff that will prevent other things from happening, or actually change the DNA in the body. Anytime you and there are a lot of viruses that do this through mutations, and it can cause all kinds of various effects. Almost all of them have always been bad, and then some of them are inert. Monkeying with RNA, you hear people talk it up. Early science is one wonderful things. In the long run, it is always monkeying with who you are and your ability to create replicated normal cells. So I'm just warning you, next time you hear of these super babies or these black-eyed alien babies, just know that this was something that is caused by deliberate environmental insults. And we'll leave it at that. I was just quite disturbed the more I got into it. The cyclopean babies were the ones that are really, really sad. They don't even look compatible with life. It's really, really quite sad. But anyway, enough of that. Just be cautious and trying new things. It's usually like with software when you're trying to upgrade your computer. If you went to Windows 11, you know now that you probably regret every bit of it. It was new and shiny and promised all kinds of things, and yet the previous was much better. Just be cautious, and that's all I got to say about that. I think we lost Loki.
No. I didn't know. I didn't know you were done.
No, I was done. I don't want to get too much into it. Anger left me a long time ago, about 2 years ago when all of this started. You remember how I was hyping on this and saying all the things that were going wrong and how we're being lied to and all this stuff about certain things. And the anger lasted for quite a while, and now I'm just sad. It doesn't mean I'm not motivated, but I'm just sad.
Okay.
Because everything that we thought is happening. So anyway.
All right, Adega Outlaw. Thank you, brother. We are going to do a little skipping around because I wanted to read a certain story, and I am getting to it right now. Okay.
Skip a few of them?
Well, we're going to skip around just a little bit.
All right.
We're going to skip around just a little bit, just a tad. So this is the story. This is Brother Grimm's fairy tale of Briar Rose. A long time ago, there were a king and queen who said every day, if only we had a child. But they never had one. But it happened that once the queen was bathing, a frog crept out of the water onto the land and said unto her, "Your wish shall be fulfilled before a year has gone by. You shall have a daughter." What the frog said had come true. And the
Why is
queen
it
had a
always a
little.
frog? I'm sorry, I just had to ask. Why is it always a frog?
I don't know. I have no idea why it's a frog, a talking frog. Maybe it never got kissed, never turned into a frog.
All right.
And she was so pretty that the king could not contain himself for joy and ordered a great feast. He invited not only his kindred, friends, and acquaintances, but also the wise women in order that they might be kind and well disposed towards the child. There were 13 of them in his kingdom, but as he had only 12 golden plates for them to eat out of, one of them had to be left at home. You can see where this is going. The feast was held with all manner of splendor, and when it came to an end, the wise women bestowed their magic gifts upon the baby. One gave virtue, another beauty, a third riches, and so on with everything in the world that one could wish for. When 11 of them had made their promises, suddenly the 13th came in. She wished to avenge herself for not having been invited. I think we all know who this dramatic bitch really is.
Oh, yeah.
And without greeting or even looking at anyone, she cried with a loud voice, "The king's daughter shall, in her 15th year, prick herself with a spindle and fall over dead." And without saying a word more, she turned around and left the room. They were all shocked, but the 12th, whose good wish still remained unspoken, came forward, and as she could not undo the evil sentence, but only soften it, she said, "It shall not be death, but a deep, deep sleep of 100 years into which the princess shall fall." The king, who wished to keep his dear child from the misfortune, gave orders that every spindle in the entire kingdom should be burned. Meanwhile, the gifts of the wise women came true for the young girl, for she was beautiful, modest, good natured, and wise, that everyone who saw her was bound to love her. It happened that on the very day she turned 15 years old, the king and queen were not at home, and the maiden was left in the palace quite alone. So she went around into all sorts of places, looked into rooms and bedchambers just as she liked, and at last came to the old tower. She climbed up the narrow winding staircase and reached a little door. A rusty key was in the lock, and when she turned it, the door sprang open, and there in the little room sat an old woman with a spindle, busily spinning her flax. "Good day, old dame," said the king's daughter. "What are you doing there?" "I am spinning," said the old woman, and nodded her head. "What sort of thing is that rattles around so merrily?" said the girl. And she took the spindle and wanted to spin it too. But scarcely had she touched the spindle when the magic decree was fulfilled, and she picked her finger with it. And in that very moment, when she felt the prick, she fell down upon the bed that stood there and lay in a deep sleep. And this sleep extended over the whole palace. The king and queen, who had just come home and had entered the great hall, began to fall asleep, and all of the court as well. The horses, too, went to sleep in the stable, the dogs in the yard, the pigeons upon the roof, the flies on the wall. Even the fire that was flaming on the hearth became quiet and slept. The roast meat left off frizzling, and the cook, who was just going to pull the hair of the kitchen boy because he had forgotten something, let him go and went to sleep. And the wind fell, and on the trees outside the castle, not a leaf moved again. But round about the castle there began to grow a hedge of thorns, which every year became higher and higher, and at last grew close up round the castle and all over it, so that there was nothing left of it to be seen, not even the flag upon the roof. But the story of the beautiful sleeping Briar Rose, for so the princess was named, went about the country, so that from time to time king's sons came and tried to get through the thorny hedge into the castle, but found it impossible, for the thorns held fast together as if they had hands, and the youths were caught in them, could not get loose again, and died a miserable death. After long, long years, a king's son came again to the country. He heard an old man talking about the briar hedge, and that a castle was said to stand behind it, in which a wonderfully beautiful princess named Briar Rose had been asleep for 100 years, and that the king and queen and the whole court were asleep likewise. He had also heard, too, from his grandfather, that many kings' sons had already come and had tried to get through the thorny hedge. They had remained sticking fast in it and had died a pitiful death. Then the youth said, I'm not afraid. I will go and see this beautiful Briar Rose. The good old man tried to dissuade him, but he did not listen to his words. But by this time, 100 years had just passed, and the day had come when Briar Rose was to awake again. When the king's son came near to the briar hedge, it was nothing but large and beautiful flowers, which parted from each other of their own accord and let him pass unhurt. Then they closed again behind him like a hedge. In the courtyard, he saw the horses and the spotted hounds lying asleep, and on the roof sat pigeons with their heads under their wings. And when he entered the home, the flies were asleep upon the wall, and the cook in the kitchen was still holding out his hands to seize the boy, and the maid was sitting by the black hen which she was going to pluck. He went on further, and in the great hall he saw the whole of the court lying fast asleep, and upon the throne lay the king and queen. Then he went on still farther, and all was so quiet that a breath could be heard, and at last he came to the tower and opened the door onto the little room where Briar Rose was sleeping. There she lay, so beautiful that he could not turn his eyes away, and he stooped down and gave her a kiss. But as soon as he kissed her, Briar Rose opened her eyes and awoke, and looked at him quite sweetly. Then they went down together, and the king awoke, and the queen, and the whole court, and looked at each other in great astonishment. And the horses in the courtyard stood up and shook themselves, and the hounds jumped up and wagged their tails. The pigeons on the roof pulled out their heads from under their wings, looked around, and flew into the open country. The flies on the walls crept again. The fire in the kitchen burned up and flickered and cooked the meat. The roast began to turn and fizzle, and the cook gave the boy such a box on the ear that he screamed, and the maid plucked the fowl ready for the spit. And then the marriage of the king's son with Briar Rose was celebrated with all the splendor, and they lived contented to the end of their days. And that is the tale of Sleeping Beauty, Briar Rose. And Maleficent, that bitch.
Yep.
Without, Dave Bob says, without asking, he violated her.
Romance is not dead.
Oh my
It
Lord.
just eludes a few ignorant people.
Let's see, is there anyone that's not? Let's see. That's a long one. I want to wait for that one. We'll do, okay, so give me just 1 second. We'll do one more. This is one of my favorites.
All right.
So I don't want it to be too long because I don't want to go on reading like 8 or 9 pages. All right.
There are some real short ones, so okay.
Some of you are going to know who the hell I'm talking about here. Once there was a miller who was poor, but who had a beautiful daughter. Now it happened that he had to go and speak to the king. And in order to make himself appear important, he said to him, I have a daughter who can spin straw into gold. The king said to the miller, "That is an art which pleases me well. If your daughter is as clever as you say, bring her here tomorrow to my palace, and I will try what she can do." When the girl was brought to him, he took her into a room which was quite full of straw, gave her a spinning wheel and a reel, and said, "Now, set to work. And if by tomorrow morning early you have not spun the straw into gold during the night, you will die." Wow, isn't that something?
Nice guy.
Thereupon he himself locked up the room and left her in it alone. So there sat the poor miller's daughter, and for the life of her could not tell what to do. She had no idea how straw could be spun into gold, and she grew more and more miserable until at last she began to weep. But all at once the door opened, and in came a little man and said, "Good evening, Mistress Miller. Why are you crying so?" "Alas," answered the girl, "I have to spin straw into gold, and I do not know how to do it." "What will you give me," said the mannequin, "if I do it for you?" "My necklace," said the girl. The little man took the necklace, seated himself in front of the wheel, and whir, 3 turns, and the reel was full. Then he put on another on, and whir, 3 times round, and the second was full. And so it went on until morning, when all the straw was spun, and all the reels were full of gold. By daybreak, the king was already there, and when he saw the gold, he was astonished and delighted, but his heart became only more greedy. He had the miller's daughter taken into another room full of straw, which was much larger, and commanded her to spin that also in one night if she valued her life. "You will die if you don't spin it in gold." The girl knew not how to help herself and was crying when the door again opened, and the little man appeared and said, "What will you give me if I spin that straw into gold for you?" "The ring on my finger," answered the girl. The little man took the ring and began to turn the wheel, and by morning had spun all the straw into glittering gold. The king rejoiced beyond measure at the sight, but still he had not enough gold. And he had the miller's daughter taken into a still larger room full of straw, and said, "You will spin this too in the course of this night. But if you succeed, you shall be my wife." And he thought, "Even if she's a miller's daughter, I could not find a richer wife in the entire world." When the girl was alone, the mannequin came again for the third time and said, "What will you give me if I spin the straw for you this time?" "I have nothing left that I could give," answered the girl. "Then promise me, if you should become queen, your first child." "Hmm. Who knows whether that will ever happen," thought the miller's daughter, and not knowing how else to help herself in the strait, she promised the mannequin what he wanted, and for that he once more span the straw into gold. When the king came in the morning and found all he had wished, he took her in marriage, and the pretty miller's daughter became a queen. 1 year later, she had a beautiful child, and she never gave a thought to the mannequin. But suddenly, one night, he came into her room and said, "Now give me what you promised." The queen was horror struck and offered the mannequin all the riches of the kingdom if he would leave but her child. His reply, "No. Something that is living is dearer to me than all the treasure in the world." Then the queen began to weep and cry, so the mannequin pitied her. "I will give you 3 days' time," he said. "If by that time you find out my name, you shall keep your child." So the queen thought the whole night of all the names that she had ever heard. And she sent a message over the country to inquire far and wide for any other names that there might be. When the mannequin came the next day, she began with Casper, Melchior, Balthazar, and said all the names she knew, one after another. But to every one, the little man said, "That is not my name." On the second day, she had inquiries made in the neighborhood as to the names of the people there, and she repeated the mannequin the most uncommon and curious names. Perhaps your name is Short Ribs, Sheepshanks, or Lace Leg. That is not my name, he replied. On the third day, the messenger came back again and said, I've not been able to find a single new name. But as I came to a high mountain at the end of the forest, where the fox and the hare bide each other good night, there I saw a little house. And before the house, a fire was burning. And about the fire, quite a ridiculous little man was jumping. He hopped upon one leg and shouted, Today I bake, tomorrow I brew, the next I'll have, young queen's child. Ha, glad I am that no one knew that Rumpelstiltskin is my name. You may think how glad the queen was when she heard the name. And when soon arrived, the little man came in and asked, Now, Mistress Queen, what is my name? At first, she said, Is your name Conrad? No. Is your name Henry? No. Perhaps your name is Rumpelstiltskin. The devil has told you that. The devil told you that, cried the little man. And in his anger, he plunged his right foot so deep into the earth that his whole leg went in. And in his rage, he pulled at his left leg so hard with both hands that he tore himself in two.
That's a heck of a yank.
That's a heck of a yank. Mitzopidalik gets around. Yes, he does. Firstborn. Mitzopidalik.
I like that story. That's my favorite one out of them.
Oh yeah, mine too. How do you do that voodoo?
Well, you like the mischievous people, so
yes,
it does fit you.
Yes, it does. I like the mischievous people. So,
and it's also strange that every time you see him, he's always in brown and green.
Yep. Well, as we know, and as we have talked about on this very show a few times, the Loki that is Norse mythology is not just Loki.
Nope.
So he comes from other pantheons and was adopted by the Norse pantheon, by Odin's family. So
Loki gets around.
Loki gets around. And thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Thank you. Thank you for telling us about the black eyed peas.
Yes. The alien babies.
Talking about records. Yeah, Loki brought fire to man. Yes, he did. Bringer of fire and humanity. Yes, he is. Loki is the bringer of fire and humanity. He wasn't just a god of mischief. So he stole fire from the gods and gave it to humans because he pitied them. So black IP addresses, something like that. But yeah, guys, we're out of here. Thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you for all Lady Mist. Thank you. Thank you for hanging out with me and Adega.
Always great to see Lady Mist.
Dave Bob, DJ Ronnie G, Chris Persia. Didn't Loki bring civilization? He did indeed. Awesome one. Thank you for being here. Psychodorp 9. Guys, thank you so very much. Broken Entertainment. Classic Comics. Good to see you. Good to see all of you here. Thank you guys so very much. Angela Draven, I'm sure you're still there. Thank you for being here. Guys, we will be back tomorrow morning for our Star Trek Picard Episode 2 review.
Yeah. Let's see if the luck continues for some people.
Uh-huh. And hopefully we'll have I'm haven't heard from Mexican Iron Man, but I'm pretty sure we're gonna have a Friday night late show. So until then, guys, be great, be excellent to each other, always speak friend to enter. And guys, if you see this mad doctor out and about, give him a little tip of your cap, give him a little nod. You deserve
nice. Be nice.
Take care of everybody.
Send something horrid to your dreams.
videos are tremendous. Like, comment, and subscribe, and hammer that notification bell.